Hello and welcome back to the Academy of the Magical Art. I am Frater Ophiel and it's good to be back doing another recording today. It's been a couple of weeks, per usual, getting caught up in the gusto of life and the whirlwind of work. But like I said, it's good to be back doing this again. I've been contemplating what we should talk about today for a couple of days now, and a couple of thoughts have occurred to me. One of which being talking to various different aspects of ourself, and the other being talking about the will. After doing some meditation this morning, I came to the conclusion that discussing the will would be the most advantageous topic, simply because it is so vitally important to the magical practice to have an understanding of what the will is and how it is used. The will, in my personal understanding, is the source spot of manifestation. In order for us to create something in any capacity, be it magically or physically or artistically or anything really, first there has to be a desire, a will for that thing to exist. From will, we then have thought, contemplating and thinking of how we can take that desire and bring it to a physical manifestation. After that, we have action. So I suppose to say in our 3 steps of manifestation, again, we have will, thought, and action. Now the will is a very, very funny thing. It's very tricky. It's something that people oftentimes get all sorts of wrapped up in, and rather than them controlling their will, the will controls them. I've heard the will referred to in past as a dog that we have to train that lives inside of us. Untrained, it just runs rampant and wreaks havoc, grasping out at whatever it wants to. But trained, it can be a great tool and a great asset, bringing us a step closer to our divine nature. The problem that people oftentimes struggle with in terms of their own will is not really being in control of it. They think that they are, but in reality, it is controlling them. Some very basic examples that I used in a conversation with one of my loved ones earlier today was that of things like caffeine, nicotine, wine or harder alcohols, or even music. Now, with the obvious things, the things that form a very, very physical addiction, white sugar, caffeine, nicotine being some of our most common, what do people end up finding themselves saying? Well, I want a cigarette, I want a soda, I want to eat a candy bar, whatever it is. Now, logically thinking, do we really want to fill ourselves with these artificial chemicals that do no good for our bodies, rather only wreaking havoc on them? Or is there something else driving our will, telling our will that it desires it, and not overpowering our thought until it's satiated? Especially with things like nicotine and caffeine. You have somebody who's a heavy smoker, they go a couple hours without a cigarette, and their brain starts to short circuit, and they can't function until they run outside and suck that smoke down. They are not in control of the nicotine or the tobacco, the plant. It is in control of them. In order to justify it, they tell themselves that they want it. Oh, I'm in control. I really do want this. But in reality, no, you probably don't. And realistically, how can we expect to control anything around us, take hold of our lives, take hold of our paradigms, take hold of our realities, if we can't even control and take hold of ourselves and our will? First, you must master yourself, and you can master the world around you. It is a sequence. One cannot expect to go performing large magical feats of manifestation through the use of their will when their will is running rampant, controlling them. Master the self, master your environment. You cannot do it backwards. It doesn't work. Another interesting thing that I was discussing with a friend of mine the other day was that of music. Now, music, frequency, if you take frequency, a G note to C note, and place it at 432 hertz, play it at a plate of sand, it makes a beautiful geometric shape. Crisp, concise, exact. If you take that same note and you switch it to 440 hertz, that shape becomes all distorted, becomes confused. It gets thrown into a state of chaos. The music that we listen to used to, once upon a time, be played at 432 hertz. If you talk to somebody who can tune an instrument by ear, they always tune it to 432 hertz. Place that guitar or whatever instrument you're using next to a tuner, and it's about a quarter to a half step off. Why? Because our body's naturally tuned to 432. However, mainstream media tunes at 440. Therefore, when they're playing their music that we are then listening to via the radio, the television, the Pandora, iHeartRadio, I don't care what it is, we are blasting ourselves with 440 frequency, throwing the water that is our bodies into chaos all the time. Many people, I've discussed this in previous videos, can't sit in a quiet room or a quiet vehicle. They have to have music on. They have to be listening to something because they are not at peace with their thoughts. Now, they tell themselves as soon as they get in their car and turn the radio on, oh, I want to listen to some music. When in reality, there's probably a whole lot of stuff going on inside their head that would be very advantageous for them to think through and deal with and meditate upon, which would require some silence. But instead, their will is to listen to that music and blast themselves with that 440 hertz and throw their body into chaos and throw their mind into more disillusion. Why? Well, simple explanation would be it's on purpose. There are people that understand how these laws work that want us to hold ourselves within invisible fence after invisible fence after invisible fence through use of addiction to different things, whether it be, like I said, caffeine, nicotine, or something like music or sex or physical stimulation through the TV or whatever it is. They want us to be distracted. They want our will to constantly be chasing after other things. They want us to be willing to put other things into ourselves that are going to poison us, intoxify us, and keep us into this muddled state. If we were to free ourselves of those things and to gain control, if we were to cut out all of the disillusion, if we were to cut out all of the things that our brain thinks it needs, and we were to put ourselves and what we truly desire at the forefront of thought and not what we think we desire because of these silly addictions, we become very powerful. We become focused, we become gathered, and we become balanced. If enough people do that, the people that are in power begin to lose power. It's very simple, really. However, many people don't feel like taking the time to think through these things. They'd rather be in bondage. They'd rather be in their fence. They'd rather not be thinking about the bigger questions and staying in the question. But rather they want to be distracted by the flashing lights of the cell phone or the television and the pretty messed up frequencies of the radio. So they're not ascending and growing and purifying themselves. As you progress throughout this next week or weeks, months, years of your life, constantly be questioning, constantly be asking yourself, am I in control of this situation or is it in control of me? This thing that I'm putting into my body, am I in control of it or is it in control of me? Who is the master and who is the dog? You or your will? The more you master yourself, the more you cut out things that have mastery over you, the more divine you become, the more harnessed and focused you become, the more powerful you become. You truly begin to experience what it is to have independence because you're not dependent upon chasing those feelings and that physical stimuli. At that point, you become in control of what you think, what you do, how your time is spent, how your money is spent. The mind is it's a very sharp tool, and it's capable of a lot of things. And when we allow it to run rampant, chasing after whatever it wants, rather than focusing it and telling it what we want and how we want it to be used, we become like puppets on a string. So I encourage you, if you want to take hold of yourself and if you want to take hold of the things that are going on in your life, begin to cut out the things that have a hold over you. I want to thank you for joining with me again today at the Academy of the Magical Art. And until next time, blessed be.